were the mayor of New York City for a year and a half. I ran the COVID response for the city.
I actually was the one who convinced the mayor to make it a mandate.
So the way we do it in public health is we make it very uncomfortable to be unvaccinated. They didn't get vaccinated because they heard it was safe. They gave in because it was really hard.
Do you think you'd have gotten a hard time if New York City found out that you were having sex parties during COVID?
Yeah, it would have been a big deal. Yeah, it would have been a real embarrassment.
Yeah.
So I want you to take yourself back to March of 2020. Okay, mentally. The beginning of the COVID pandemic. Right? The streets of New York City looked like a dystopian sci-fi movie, albeit with less charm and more hobo urine. No, more than normal for New York City. Now, it was even worse than the rest of the country. Right? Thousands of businesses were forced to close. Millions of New Yorkers lost their jobs overnight, and loved ones were forced to die alone in quarantine. And the man you're about to meet is responsible for all of it, Dr. J. Varma.
I spent my career, I worked for the CDC for 20 years, so I kind of lived all over the world doing infectious disease work. So I used to spend time doing public health where I go to different, so I lived in Bangkok and in Beijing and in Ethiopia.
So exciting.
And so what I did was, my job was to go and help countries like build their systems to detect and respond to diseases.
Okay.
So kind of like during COVID where you had to set up a testing program and a vaccination program and you need to monitor the numbers. And that was like the type of thing I did for my career at CDC, is go to different countries and help them do that. The mayor's team contacted me because I was in New York before that. And they contacted me to come back, so I moved back from Ethiopia to New York to run the COVID response for the city. So I set up all the testing and vaccine program for the city. I actually was the one who convinced the mayor to make it a mandate. I was on TV for about a year and a half. So I was on a press conference every day for a year and a half, every morning at 10 o'clock.
What?
Yeah, with the mayor. I had to sit next to him.
For COVID?
Yeah, for COVID, yeah. I'm very Googleable, but I'm not like...
Okay, I didn't Google you. Maybe I should have.
You can Google me now.
Okay, I'll Google
if that turns you on.
Now, there's more to Dr. Varma than mere medical tyranny here. It's a classic story of the rules for thee, but not for me, as we see with a lot of unelected bureaucrats. But this story is not one about hypocrisy. I want to be clear. Everyone's a hypocrite. It's not lost on me. This is a story about those in charge not fearing what it is that they demanded you fear in a way that altered your life. You were told to fear going to church. You were told to fear meeting family, fear running your business, or even vote. Remember that? It was so dangerous, you needed to vote from home by any means possible, while you, the peasants, were locked down and not allowed to gather with more than 10 people at a time. Elites like Jay Varma, well, he was hosting sex parties.
It's so funny, it's like this, because I did all this like deviant, like sexual stuff while I was like, on TV and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And people were like, aren't you afraid? Aren't you embarrassed? And I was like, no, actually, I'm like really like I love being my authentic self. So I've had every type of range of everything.
Okay.
And I've been to a lot of like sex parties, lots of like play parties and things like that.
Okay, so what were the sex parties like during COVID?
So that I didn't. So I never went to a like public type one. We actually had my wife and I had one with our friends, like in August of like that first summer, because all our friends were just like, well, it wasn't so much sex. They were just like, I need to get like this energy out of me and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we rented a hotel. I had to be kind of sneaky about it because hotels didn't want people gathering there. Because I was like running the entire COVID response of the city, I had a whole I had everything get tested the right way. Told me where to get tested, showed me the results. And it was fun. We all took Molly, and it was like 8 or 9 of us, and 8 to 10 of us in a room, and everybody had a blast because everybody was so pent up because it had been everybody was just stuck together and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And sometimes it isn't so much about executive. Some of it's just something about bodies being close to each other, right? Just being like naked with friends.
During COVID, we just had private parties. I didn't go to anything big. Yeah, so it was just home in our home or other places. That was what we did during COVID because in August 2020, all of our friends, because we had big group of friends and stuff who were all in this Play Poly world, everybody was just like pent up. And so I did like a whole like testing protocol for everybody. It was a relatively small, small as in like, no, COVID test. It was like 10 to 12 people.
Okay, so violate the draconian lockdowns that the rest of the population has to follow for a mass sex party once, shame on me. Violate your own draconian mandates again over a year later when your rules only allow for a max gathering of 50 people so that you can attend a drug-fueled underground dance party with 4 times that number of people. Shame on.
Now, officials say gatherings continue to play a role in the increase. While anyone planning on a big party, officials are telling you, think again.
The only way I could do this job for the city was if I had some way to blow off steam every now and then.
Do you think you'd have gotten like a hard time if like New York City found out that you were having sex parties during COVID?
Yeah, it would have been a big deal. Yeah, it would have been a real embarrassment.
Yeah, you can keep it. Yeah, keep it.
Actually, the only time I felt kind of nervous was fairly early on, right when we were about to do the vaccine mandate, right before we did it. I hadn't been to any like dance bars in New York City yet. And we went to we had a wild night, like we went to like a boat, there's always dance parties on boats. And then we went to some like underground like dance party, like underneath a bank in Wall Street. And we were all rolling, we were all taking Molly, and everybody's high. And I was so happy because I hadn't done that in like a year and a half, like a year or whatever. And but I was looking around being like, I wonder if anybody sees me looking differently. Because this was not COVID friendly. It was like May or June of 2021. So it was like the spring. So the vaccines had become available, but nobody had really kind of thought about having like, well, I had never thought of going to a big scale party.
Was the vaccine mandate out?
Not yet. It was for small groups. It was for certain city workers, but there wasn't a citywide. You can't go to clubs or bars yet. That happened in June.
So people were like losing their jobs at that time if they didn't get it.
There might have been, but it's a very small number of people. Most people, everybody can get it eventually.
How big was the party?
There was probably 200 people. It was like the bottom of some bank. And then when your turn comes up to get the vaccine, we want you to get that because that is the path to parties.
Okay, so that seems bad at first glance. And second, and all of them. But I'm willing to bet that giant sex parties are not what you missed most, and certainly not what you missed out on most during the COVID pandemic, if you were in New York. Probably loved ones, holidays, family gatherings, especially around Thanksgiving and Christmas, that time where Governor Cuomo was sicking law enforcement on unsuspecting citizens and you were being chastised by your elected officials. What about that? What did Mr. Varma do then?
Health officials discouraging travel during the approaching holiday season as scores of cities are dealing with surges in coronavirus cases.
My wife's family was in Seattle and they went back over Christmas, that first COVID Christmas. I couldn't go because publicly I had encouraged New Yorkers not to travel. And so, the mayor was like, you really can't go with your family, you gotta stay here. Because if they catch you if somebody takes a picture at the airport of you, they'll...
Did the mayor know about your party?
No, I don't talk about that part of my life.
Yeah.
Okay, that one's pretty rough too. But I'm sure these people believe some of what they espouse. For example, a lot of you who didn't get the vaccine, right, because you believe there was some kind of natural immunity if you'd already had the virus, and you were told absolutely not. That's not the case, especially in New York. Social distancing, masks, you need a minimum of 4 doses of the vaccine.
And if you're 50 years old or above, you need 4 doses.
I'm sure that's consistent when they don't know cameras are running, right?
I know people that won't have sex with someone that didn't get the COVID vaccine. And I don't know enough to know if that's like
bizarre. That's like a weird, I think that's a weird, belief that somehow, their body is different. It doesn't make any difference at all. Everybody's exposed to the virus, and you're exposed to the virus because it breathed on you or because you got it injected to you. It's the same immune response.
Okay, so it turns out science is a thing, and that one looks kind of bad. But let's not rush to judgment. Don't write Dr. Varma off as some power-hungry villain just yet. Good people sometimes do bad things, or they make mistakes. Those in charge could still have been looking out for you, and in no way does this prove that people like Dr. Varma get a thrill out of psychologically manipulating people to abuse their own power, exert control, while completely disregarding the life-destroying rules that they apply to people like you, right? Right?
When it comes to the vaccine, I think people will believe it more if it's really consistently validated by healthcare professionals.
Go to Blasio.
Yeah.
So how did you convince him to do the mandate?
Well, I had actually been talking to him about it since even before the vaccines were available. I was like, you're going to have to do it this way. And so he came up with this metaphor. We're going to like climb this ladder. We're going to first start voluntarily, and then we're going to be pushing it.
So the way we do it in public health is we make it very uncomfortable to be unvaccinated. The vaccine is like, oh, you can't get a job, you can't go to a restaurant, you can't go to school. It's like, I'm just gonna get vaccinated.
So was it technically like kind of forcing people?
Yeah, that's what you force people by making it really uncomfortable. The car comes with seatbelts and airbags. You have to like actively, and it beeps all the time. So you can still drive without a seatbelt, right? The car doesn't shut off, but you know, it beeps all the time.
Right.
This is your seatbelt.
So brilliant.
Yeah, that's the whole idea. The whole idea is like you build barriers so that people are like, just gonna do it because I'm tired of being wrong.
So it was like kind of forcing people.
Yeah, and the whole point of the education is, this is where I have like all these talks I give people in public health about it. It's like people think, oh, I'm gonna give you lots of information so you'll do the right thing. No, the reason I give you the information is so that I'm gonna make it really hard to be unvaccinated. And then I'm going to also give you a lot of information about getting vaccinated and why it's good. So that once you finally say, I'm just going to get vaccinated, you at least know that, oh, well, at least they told me it's really safe. So do you understand the difference? They didn't get vaccinated because they heard it was safe. They gave in because it was really hard.
It's not so much about finding them and arresting them. It's about making the default, what we call the default choice, the easy one. So you just have to do it that way.
I mean, are people equally smart enough to deal with this on their own?
No, that's why we require it.
Smart.
And that's why I told you about the education. It's like, I don't expect the education to change your behavior. I'm just going to make it really hard for you to do your job. And then I'll give you education so that when you finally give in, you'd be like, oh, well, I guess it was the right thing.
Yeah.
All I can say to people is that this is not a conspiracy. This is like people working flat out, doing the best they possibly can.
I think the important thing here is just, again, be led by the facts and the data.
Oh, the COVID vaccine deniers?
Yeah.
Oh, they're nuts cases. I don't do it. Yeah, they're nut cases. But
Yeah.
the guys who are vaccinated are like right-wing nut cases.
Yeah, I mean, but okay, what do we do with those people?
That's why you have to have rules, because you can't convince them. You have to like just pass laws that say like you got to do this, and nothing else to do. So that's what we do in public health. There's nothing else we can do. So I can't always just do what the right thing to do is. I have to also make sure it's the right thing with the whole like world of everybody in it.
Ah, yes, those nutcases for whom Varma made life exceedingly difficult. Interesting fact, one of those nutcases was NBA star Kyrie Irving.
The team just announced that superstar point guard Kyrie Irving won't play or practice with the team until he's eligible under the local COVID-19 vaccination mandate.
So, there's a basketball player named Kyrie Irving. You know, Kyrie Irving, he refused to get vaccinated. But because he played for the team in Brooklyn, because of the vaccine mandate that I passed, he was not allowed to play. So it became this huge national issue about why Kyrie Irving wasn't allowed to play basketball because he was refusing to get vaccinated. Like, this is the fun part of my life. So I got to be on, so the Wall Street Journal wrote a whole story about me being the one that blocked Kyrie Irving from playing basketball.
I was not expecting, a mandate to be brought down in a way that it wasn't going to allow me to play at all.
I just think he's asinine. He's an ass because he's like trying to like I'm not in a position to tell him how to dribble better or how to shoot better. Like, I can be a fan and I can say, oh, I wish he had this, but I'm not going to be like, I can't go coach him. Why is he turning around and saying that, like, I'm not going to tell him he doesn't know how to dribble and he knows how to do it. Like, don't tell me, like, how the science works.
There was no plan in place. There was no vision of like how it's going to work for our team. And I think that really impacted not just me, but a lot of people. So, just had to sit in that hot seat for a little bit and deal with it, man. Life of a martyr, bro.
If only Kyrie Irving was having underground sex parties as opposed to trying to make a living through his elected profession. But the same, by the way, can be said of trade workers, business owners, employees all across New York, and, by the way, the country. Again, for you, the COVID policies were devastating.
The mayor admitting this morning the NYPD's social distancing enforcement efforts aren't working. A rough arrest of a young mother with her child in her hands.
Life-altering. But for people in charge, like Varma, it was actually pretty easy. Well, I'll let him explain it to you.
Oh, like, how did you not, like, go crazy during it? And I think the reason I didn't is because I felt like I had control.
Yeah.
It was getting done to you.
Yeah.
It was like, I was the one, like, making the decisions about what happened. So, like, I didn't feel like I was lost control. And I think that's what really ends up freaking any of us out. Like, when your life is, like, all uncertainty, it's tough, right?
And there it is. Control. People like Varma weren't scared because they were in control. You were scared because you had no control. It was all controlled for you. And there will be another installment on this. But before we get to that, did I mention, in reviewing this footage, I couldn't help but feel compelled to meet Mr. Varma. And so I flew to New York, and we had a little chat. We may never be able to get them to answer, but today, I was able to ask Dr. J. Varma.
Oh my gosh!
There you go.
Join Mug Club today for $89 annually, or try it mugless for $9 a month. You can sign up at louderwithcredit.com/mugclub for the entire catalog, including Nick DiPaolo, Brian Callen, Mr. Guns and Gear, and of course, Alex Jones, along with 100% more of this show.